And I'm joined now by the inimitable, the fabulous Diana West, who is the author of American Betrayal. Diana, it's been a while.
It's been a while. What a lovely introduction. Thank you.
And I've missed you.
Yes.
There's one thing in particular that I need to talk to you about because I didn't really put all of this together until just the other day. Donald Trump has to do away with the UN. And the reason I say that is...
Yes.
Well,
Go on.
okay.
You say that because...
So the UN Charter, that the countries, the 5 countries that are in the governing body have the final vote on everything. And then we allowed Russia to have a vote, and they were allowed to have the veto vote. In other words, any of the 5 countries can veto whatever. And so it's really not a democratic body at all. And we are suffering the consequences. Right. It never was, but it was intended to appear that way. So we were sold a bill of goods. We need to do something about that. And I don't know that he's going to get anything done. I mean, avoiding the TPP or renegotiating some deal with Iran is a great start, but it really doesn't get to the core of the matter. Am I wrong?
I think you're absolutely right. And this is what is so genius about the whole prospect, because one thing does lead to another. We have to go back to the fact that United Nations was set up, fostered, and actually brought into its first existence by a very, very senior Soviet agent, a Soviet military intelligence agent named Alger, who also worked undercover at the United States State Department in the Franklin Roosevelt administration. He literally was the first Secretary General, the acting Secretary General. He fostered the negotiations and framework discussions that actually brought the United Nations into being. And no, it was never a democratic body. And the very extension of a seat, of a place to the Soviet Union made a mockery of all of the beautiful phrases and catchwords that were used to sell the American people and the rest of the world a bill of goods. Because it normalized, again, getting back to one of our favorite concepts, it normalized the Soviet Union, a bloody dictatorship to the nth degree, as being part of the community of nations, as being someone fit to sit with democracies and make these pronouncements on world affairs. So this has always been a tremendous open wound, really, sitting there in New York City, including almost literally with the fact that it has been a nest of espionage from the start. A nest of agents, communist agents, other kinds of agents, but certainly we've seen both communists of the American variety working in the United Nations, particularly in the orders for hostile agents from the rest of the world, and for many years those would have been directed by the Soviet Union. And now continue to be directed under Russian intelligence, Chinese intelligence. I mean, these are not anything theoretical about what I'm talking about. This has been a long progress of disaster, both on the sort of diplomatic level and on the intelligence war level.
It's such a misrepresentation, and I'll just say this. I mean, if we're going to just supply the spies with Hillary Clinton's server, they don't need the UN also. So why don't we pick one?
Well, information, and of course, not just information from her server, but uranium stocks to Putin's Russia. Also, I mean, this is, these are things that are just approved in the open or by mistake, quote unquote, through the server. But actually, the presence of these people in our country does provide them with the ability to insert agents of influence into our policymaking chain. So it's always more than just information. It's even more than just transfer of secrets. It's even more than just transfer of precious materials, such as uranium. It's also this endless influence, agents of influence on our policymaking. And I will note that this was in the news just this week. The FBI has warned the staffs of both the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign to beware of foreign intelligence agents trying to make friends And of course, the main thing there is influence, trying to influence the campaigns, trying to influence the candidates. We are so blind to this. I mean, this should be second nature to anyone in a political circle that this kind of thing happens. But we're so blind to this notion through our education system, our experts, our so-called historians do not tell us about these things. We have been absolutely blinded to the whole concept. So the FBI actually has to inform people at the top of the chain that they better be careful about what foreign intelligence people they may be speaking with, who are trying to make friends with them as they approach White House powers.
It's like a joke. It's like the Keystone Cops or I mean, it's amateur hour. And then we have Hillary. I played her clip yesterday. Sort of saying that we will be very tough on cybersecurity, and if there are any cyber threats, we will deal with them, and we will set the tone. And this is the woman who invented porous cyber, functioning. Her server, it was so porous, everybody had at it.
Right. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Is it misdirection? Is it insanity speaking? I mean, really, what is going on here? It's the same thing with the whole concept of Russian influence, which suddenly became a thing in this campaign, coming out of the Democratic side, whereas we are not supposed to discuss the uranium deal I mentioned earlier, that as Secretary of State, the State Department approved this transfer of 20% of United States uranium stocks to Vladimir Putin. Her State Department had to sign off on that deal. In the Clinton Foundation lore, bringing in $145 million from the board of the various board members of the company Uranium One that was transferred to the Soviet Union. So, I mean, this is sort of, why do you need...
With whom they were friendly.
Pardon?
With whom the Clintons were friendly. We're on friendly terms.
Friendly. Yes, and Bill picked up $500,000 for a speech in Moscow in this same interesting collection of events. So, why do you have to even have, as you say, espionage? But again, the influence is key, and that is always the elephant in the room. But certainly the behavior is absolutely staggeringly treasonous, according to the lights of an earlier generation. Yeah. I mean, this is absolutely tremendous.
She's a streetwalker going into the local high school and lecturing the girls on chastity.
Yeah, it's really true. It's really true. So
and quickly back to the UN, founded by Alger Hiss, who then we discovered was a double agent and a spy for the Soviets, or not a double agent, pardon me, he was just a spy for the Soviets.
Yeah.
Right? And then we never went back. This is like the newspaper printing the article that is completely erroneous, and then they issue a retraction 3 days later that's on page 17 that nobody ever sees. He established this basically spying body within the United States under the cover of the cloak of the UN that this is some great thing, and we never went back and looked at it again and said, now wait a minute. Because of its nefarious beginnings, maybe we should reevaluate this. And I'm urging, I'm just hoping that Trump will see through this and figure out how to approach that because
right. Well, it's the
because it's all connected.
People did see through along the way, and they were run over. I mean, again, this is one of the narratives that was not permitted to enter into our consciousness. I'm holding in my hand, pulled off my shelf while we're talking, a book called Red Spies in the UN that was published in the mid-1960s, talking about Soviet spies operating under the cloak of diplomatic immunity. So we made it as easy as possible. It really was a fantastic boon for the Soviet war against the United States.
That's right.
Again,
Diana, we've run out of time. Diana West, thank you so much for joining me. This is the Sam Sorbo Show.